Wedding checks as gifts. When giving a check as a wedding present, make it out to the groom, or you can make it out to the bride under her maiden name. It takes weeks to change your name and banks won't accept them with the new married name. Or you could put cash in an envelope. We had no problem cashing checks made out to my old name, new name, or both of us. So it's a nice thought but not totally necessary. Bank deposited checks for us with wife's old last name, wife's new last name, my first name, wrong first name for wife, my last name. Maybe it was because we deposited them all at once, but no fucks were given or even a question raised. That hasn't been my experience. I haven't changed my maiden name in 8 years of marriage. My 98-year-old grandmother forgets this point and uses his name. I've never had issues depositing checks. We do share the account, so maybe that's why Macron. Some people don't change their names. As someone currently changing their last name, I think it depends on the bank. If I tried a mobile deposit with my new last name, it was rejected because it didn't match the name currently on my account. But when I went into the bank, they didn't ask at all because I had my account number. I had a copy of our license with my maiden and new last name, but the particular teller I saw didn't ask. Cash or prepaid credit card gift cards were much easier to deal with. If we did a house fund, a check would have been preferred personally. Just went to a wedding the other day, sent them the gift via Zelle. Fun fact, sign with your married name then the maiden name underneath. Should do the trick. Used to work at a bank and saw this all the time. We've only ever given cash. Surprised people use checks tbh. Just give cash. I had a wedding couple sit on a check for weeks. Made balancing the checking account difficult. I had no problem cashing checks with my new married name, even though I didn't even change it till 6 years later. Most banks will allow a check to be deposited or cashed so long as the bride has documentation showing her maiden name, but personally I would write the check to whoever you're showing up for, bride or groom, and write in a card that it's for the both of them, or just do cash. I went to a wedding last weekend and a friend just sent money to the bride and groom through Venmo. As someone who hates getting checks and hates paying $3 for a card, this was a game changer. Half relevant, but for our wedding we used one of those honeymoon registry websites. We'd been living together for some time, so had a fully set up house, so we put in our invites that if people wanted to get us a gift then they could contribute there. I can't remember which one exactly, but it allowed us to list a bunch of experiences we wanted to do of varying prices so people could feel like they're paying for a specific thing, such as seeing an opera, admission for certain museums, dinner at fancy restaurants, river cruises, etc. Drastically cut down on the physical checks cash received. People still write checks? A lot of couples don't undergo name changes. If you're not sure what name to use, just ask the couple ahead of time. Use of the word "or" helps if your bank is dickish. It shouldn't matter who the checks are made payable to, because you can just endorse the back of the check for deposit only. Just write their current names and use "or." Alternatively, use the new names and use "or." And make it out to one or the other, not both. Banks may give you a hard time. Also, do not assume the wife is taking the man's last time. This irked me the most at my wedding. It's 2023, a lot of women are keeping their name for either professional or personal reasons. I was not allowed to cash any checks. My husband had to. And they even gave us trouble about it since my last name wasn't his. We write Mr. or Mrs. Jones. That way either spouse can deposit it. Do banks still issue checkbooks? In England, I think they pretty much are on special request only now. Who's using checks these days? Or they could use "or" instead of "and." Making the check out to Mr. and Mrs. John Doe. The check must go to and be endorsed by both payees. Mr. or Mrs. John Doe can go to either and be endorsed by either payee. You can also put groom name or bride's maiden name or bride's married name, insert groom's changed name if applicable, or whatever. If it's an or check, it can be done with anyone. The real life hack is to make it to both people with the woman's maiden name, because she either hasn't changed her name or she has paperwork showing the name change, and use or as the joiner instead of and, ea. Hey to the order of John Smith or Jane Doe. Then either one of them can process it. To my knowledge is from working as a teller at a bank in the US. As far as I know, this is the legal interpretation of or versus and on the payee line. I used to endorse as pay to new name and sign as old name. Then I could deposit it. Or vice versa if needed. People still change their name? Such an odd cultural thing. Another problem with a check is that the money only comes out when they cash it. So if you're someone like me who moves money around into separate accounts for separate bills savings, I don't like not knowing when they'll cash it and risk a bounce fee. Who uses checks anymore? If security of cash is a concern, then a gift card, MasterCard, Visa, not store should be acceptable. Bold of you to assume a woman would change her name just because she marries. Just sell them the money. Lot less hassle and risk of losing the check. I do this now overwriting any checks. Can confirm I wasn't going to change my name, but due to the numerous checks made out to me in my married name I had to. I guess in retrospect I could have contacted those family members. What is a check? Is this boomer talk? Banks don't care. Deposit it at an ATM. You don't even need to endorse it, deposit a signature on the back. Banks usually only check these things when there is an issue reported after the fact. They don't even check the issuer's signature, they only care if the signature is there. You can sign Donald Duck and they won't even notice. Source: used to work at a bank. Just remote deposit them. Banks won't care. Checks: how quaint. I'm not changing my name when I get married and he's fine with it. We went to the bank together with our marriage certificate and they took everything. I found that banks don't care. My mom makes checks out to my sons, neither of which has their own bank account yet. I just sign it, do mobile deposit, and bam, the money is in the account. We had no issues with cashing any checks. Even after the fact when something came in with my maiden name. We also joined all of accounts together technically before my name was fully changed. Marriage license was all they asked for. Lots of couples have online cash funds linked to their wedding websites. Withdraws immediately and no hassle. We're doing that for ours, and our website even generates a spreadsheet with AMT received and send a thank you option. Your statement that banks won't accept them is only half true. Banks can and will accept them if endorsed correctly. Let's say Mary Lee is getting married to James Smith. If the check is made out to Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the bank can ask Mary to sign her name as Mary Smith, then write under it Mary Lee. This is called double endorsement and is perfectly fine in situations such as this. Change banks? Because the consensus is that you got fucked over. What's a check? We didn't have any problems depositing checks. I waited a long time to change my name simply because I didn't have time, lol, no issues at all. In America this is just not true. You literally just both need to be present when depositing. Love the comments using the term maiden name. That refers to a woman's status as a virgin. A maid originally meant that. Can't believe we're not at least using terms like birth name or original name. Married 30 years to Mr. Awesome, and the kids have my last name, which is also awesome because the Nazis tried to wipe it out. Mr. and Mrs. John Smith works. Not all brides are crazy enough to change their last name well into adulthood. And make sure the memo line says for last night. Unless you're actually sleeping with bridegroom, then you probably don't want to raise any red flags. Yeah, not true. Sorry. Any reputable bank will gladly let you deposit a check and depending on your relationship probably cash it.